The name Anunnaki is derived from An, the Sumerian god of the sky. The name is variously written, meaning princely offspring, or offspring of An. The Anunnaki are a group of deities who appear in the mythological traditions of the ancient Sumerians, Akkadians, Assyrians, and Babylonians. Descriptions of how many Anunnaki there were, and what role they fulfilled, are inconsistent and often contradictory. In the earliest Sumerian writings about them, which come from the post-Akkadian period, the Anunnaki are the most powerful deities in the pantheon, descendants of An and Ki, the god of the heavens, and the goddess of earth, and their primary function is to decree the fate of Sumerians. The earliest known usages of the term Anunnaki come from inscriptions written during the reign of Gudea and the 3rd dynasty of Ur. In the earliest texts, the term is applied to the most powerful and important deities in the Sumerian pantheon, the descendants of the sky god An. This group of deities included the 7 gods who rule: An, Enlil, Enki, Ninhursag, Nana, Utu, and Inannu. Anu is commonly spoken of as the Old Anu, the original chief, the king of the lower world, and the lord of spirits and demons. His emblem is that of a single wedge, which represents him on the Chaldean numeration tablets. This single wedge has the numeral power of 60, and 60 appears to have been assigned to Anu as his special number. Sumerian myths say that the rights and standards of kingship to Anu descended from the central luminary An, founder of the Golden Age. In Babylonian myth, the Sumerian An appears as Anu, first in the line of gods and kings. And according to the best authorities on Babylonian astronomy, the god Anu was mysteriously linked to Saturn. The association was stated most bluntly by the renowned expert on Babylonian astronomy, Peter Jensen. Anu was Saturn. The term Anu was also in Egypt applied to the abode of the gods. It has the appearance of being the same name as the center of sun worship in ancient Egypt, Anu being the Egyptian name of Heliopolis. An was the chief god of the Anunnaki. An is Anu in Egyptian, and Anum in Akkadian. An was the creator of the gods, including the people of earth, but over time, An lost his privileged position to his son Enlil. Anu, in Assyrian mythology the first great deity of the upper triad, Anu, Elu, Rebel, and Ea, or heaven, earth, and Hades. His residence was in the upper or 7th heaven, which was called the heaven of Anu, and was symbolized by an emblem resembling a Maltese cross, which was often worn around the necks of the Chaldean kings. As the god of heaven, he was called the god of heaven, Anu the king, the great god, the god of the world, the chief of the gods, and Father Anu. The old triad of Babylonia was Na, Ea, and Wulji, which became under the great sacerdotal reform and new official religion, the union of Akkadian and Semitic, the trinity of Anu, Ea, and Bel, and these were all children of Ziku, or Zakar, the sky. Most of mythology was written under a year of 3 seasons, the time of sowing, of harvest, and of the inundation of the Egyptians, and in Babylonian, 3 gods divided the universe, Anu, Bel, and Ea. Sometimes 3 stands for the 3 dark nights of the moon, again the 3 seasons, and again the 3 elements or the 3 worlds. The 3 original seasons were spring, summer and winter, the autumn was added afterwards. In the various languages of India and abroad, the word Anu has a manifold of meanings and definitions. Some of the most noted include a measurement of time, a very small particle, an atom, a molecule, a subatom, millet or grain, a 6th part of a mode in a sunbeam, alongside, by the side of, lengthwise, in consequence of, being indicated by, repetition, towards, in the direction of, near to, in orderly succession, according to, in regular order, in order of seniority, corresponding with, following with, conformable to, with regard to, towards, in respect of, afterwards, with, together with, now at this time, again, once more, and further. The climate, especially in South Babylonia, is extraordinarily warm. The months during which the rains prevail are from November to February. At the present day, the heaviest rains occur in November and December, but in ancient times, as the names of the months prove, the rainy season would appear to have been in Tevet and Shebat, that is, from the end of December to the end of February. Not only the Sumerian names for these months, Abu-Udu, coming from the sea, and Shabatu, refer to rainstorms. The Sumerians must have originated in a region where water was not plentiful, and where as a consequence vegetation and life are associated with the oncoming of the rainy season. The world, therefore, is pictured as beginning in the fall, when the rains set in, and not in the spring, when the storms and rains cease. Such a condition is apt to prevail in mountainous districts, where the streams are low, or entirely dried up in the dry season, and depend upon the rains to fill them again, in contrast to a mountain-less plain like the Euphrates Valley, where the streams, fed from their sources, flow in abundance during the entire year, and during the rainy season overflow and cause inundations. The 11th month was the height of the rainy season, and known as the month of the course of rainstorms. The Assyrians place Anu in the month of January, Anu as Janus, the two-faced god, resting, as the sun at the winter solstice, and in Aquarius at the deluge. This two-faced deity is usually identified as Enki or Ea's minister, Izimud or Ushmu, although, here lays a contradiction, as is often found in the Mesopotamian pantheon. Anu and Izimud may be two different deities who emphasize the same attributes of the month in question. Nonetheless, Anu's relation to Janus in January cannot be fully dismissed. As the scholar, Samuel Fales Dunlap states, Ion, Janus, and Anu are the same divinity. Ani, a name of the sun in Assyria, is in Egypt and Syria On. In Greece it is Jan and Ion. In Italy it is Janus, whom Scaliger has shown to be the god of the sun. In Etruria it is Jan. On, Ani, Anus, Jan, Ionis, Ion, Ina, the sun. Two-faced Janus, the origin of the silently flowing year. He was believed to preside over the new year. His two faces, sometimes one old and the other young, were emblematical of his looking both on the old and the new year, as the name of the month January is derived from that of Janus. Sometimes the two faces, the old and young, were represented as the one looking upwards, to the coming year, the other downwards, on the year gone by. Deities associated with water or various bodies of water were important in almost all mythologies. Agriculture is inseparable from water. The Sumerians believed that in the beginning, the universe was a great body of water. Later, pieces of land arose from the water and life began. The importance of water is justified in the fact that the Sumerian ideogram for water and semen are identical. Enki is the Sumerian god of earth and water, knowledge, crafts, and creation, and one of the Anunnaki. He was later known as Ea in Akkadian and Babylonian mythology. He was associated with the southern band of constellations called the Stars of Ea, but also with the constellation Ashiku, the field, square of Pegasus, though his position in Capricorn will later prove certain. Beginning around the 2nd millennium BC, he was sometimes referred to in writing by the numeric ideogram for 40, occasionally referred to as his sacred number. Here we must now interject and acknowledge the traces and significance of the number 40 in the Bible, to Babylon, where 40 was the special number attributed to Enki or Ea, the god of earth and water, and where a good rainy season lasted 40 days. The 40 days and nights is a frequent refrain in the Bible. The number 40 is mentioned at least 146 times in the scriptures, and is routinely found in relation with death, destruction, penances, and water. When you investigate in Kabbalah, you discover that 40 is also the total for the Hebrew letter Mem, which was first drawn as a symbol referring to actual water. From a purely astrological viewpoint, this number is associated with the disappearance of the Pleiades for 40 days, which was already observed in ancient Babylonia. This was also the length of the rainy season, as we are reminded by the 40 days of rain that caused Noah's flood. When the Pleiades returned from their exile, the Babylonians celebrated a New Year's feast. From the 40-day disappearance of the Babylonian Pleiades, the significance of 40 was apparently derived. This 40-day period coincided with the rainy season. It was a time of fearsome storms for the sailor, a time of flood and inundation for the land dweller, a time of trial, of danger, and of exile of the beneficent stars. The return of the Pleiades was the signal for the New Year festival, in which a part of the ceremonial consisted of burning a bundle of 40 reeds, perhaps symbolical of the destruction of 40 devils who had held the Pleiades in bondage for the 40 days during which the evil spirits raged. Festival days sacred to a deity were numerous, and formed another important feature of worship, as was to be expected of an agricultural people like the ancient Babylonians. These festivals were connected originally with the seasons of the year. Curiously enough, and, incidentally, Enlil's special number is 50, and has relation to calendar days. For example, Pentecost always occurs 50 days after the death and resurrection of Jesus, the Son, and the New Wine Festival came 50 days, or 7 weeks after Pentecost. Moreover, it is known that all cross-quarter days are 40 days after the equinoxes and solstices. Given the ancient Druidic 360-day calendar, there are an observable amount of 40 and 50-day intervals. Not to mention, the Druids celebrated a festival called Beltane, which fell between the spring equinox and summer solstice, and marked the beginnings of summer. The well-read and knowledgeable will already comprehend that Bel is none other than Enlil. And thus, it should come as no surprise that the Babylonian moon god Sin, whose special number is 30, corresponds to the number of days in a given month. Enki, the Lord of the Earth, his word is unchangeable, who is better known as Ea, Lord of the Waters. Ea, the Babylonian culture god, is a water deity. The figure of Enki appears on many cylinder seals and other monuments. Seldom standing, more often seated on his throne, he wears the horned, high hat of the great gods, and often holds the rod and the ring, symbols of divine power, which in Sumerian art distinguish gods from mortals, but which are not special attributes of any one god. His special attribute is a horned animal, usually the ibex or mountain goat, which is often depicted together with a fish. On a few seals a third animal appears in Enki's presence, a bird which seems to be the eagle. Later the fish and the horned animal are contracted into one single monster, the well-known fish ram symbol of Ea, which has long been recognized as a sign of the zodiac. The name of Ea himself affords us an example of what we may find. It is sometimes expressed by an ideograph which signifies literally an antelope, Dar in Akkadian, Taraku in Assyrian, whence perhaps the biblical name of Ter. Thus we are told that Ea was called the antelope of the deep, the antelope the creator, the antelope the prince, the lusty antelope, and the ship or ark of Ea, in which his image was carried at festivals, was entitled, the ship of the divine antelope of the deep. According to Professor Sayce, the Chaldean god Ea was at times regarded rather as a gazelle than as an antelope. It was then that he was entitled the princely gazelle, the lusty gazelle, the gazelle who gives the earth, and Marduk his son, a sun god, is termed the mighty one of the gazelle god. The gazelle frequently takes the place of the goat, which was also sacred, and exalted into the zodiacal sign of Capricornus. Since Tevet, the 10th month, corresponds to the sign of Capricornus. The sign of the goat, the sea goat, was called the southern gate of the sun. Abba Adu, the Akkadian name of the 10th month, answering roughly to December. Thus, at Nunki, otherwise called Eridu, the supreme god was called Enki or Ea. As Eridu was situated on or near the sea, Ea became the great water god. The Anunnaki were angels or spirits of the great water underground, the watery abyss whence the springs and rivers flow. The union of the syllables Anunnaki represents a compound ideograph. The middle syllable Nun signifies strength, whereas the first is the ordinary ideograph for water. Hummel proposed to interpret the name therefore as gods of the watery habitation. Anu, the spirit of heaven, Ea, the spirit of earth, the Giggi are good angels, and the Anunnaki are evil angels. Anunnaki was the Akkadian deity called the angel of the abyss, a form of Ea. In the Semitic version, Anunnaki denotes the spirits of the lower world. From the Middle Babylonian period onward, the name Anunnaki was applied generally to the deities of the underworld, whereas the name Giggi was applied to the heavenly deities. The word Anunna signifies the master, or great one, and corresponds to the chief ones of the earth. The Anunnas, who dwelt in the realm of Molil, were called the Anunnaki, or masters of the underworld. They sat on golden thrones beside the stream of the waters of life, in a land of darkness and decay. The people called Sumerians, whose language became the prevailing language of the territory, arrived in Sumer about 3300 BC. They believed in star gods, and mapped the stars, and divided a circle into units of 60. The official religion of Babylonia was thus the Baal worship of the Semites, engrafted on the animism of the Sumerians. It was further modified by the introduction of star worship. How far this went back to a belief in the spirits of the stars, or whether it had a Semitic origin, we do not know, but it is significant that the cuneiform character which denotes a god is a picture of a star, and that the Babylonians were from the first, a nation of stargazers. The modern era has witnessed an incredible surge in the popularity of all forms of media concerning the mythology of the ancient Mesopotamians. Fueling this ever-growing trend are the writings of a number of researchers who propose connections between several Sumerian myth cycles and the theory that the human race was engineered or created by a group of extraterrestrial beings. Known as ancient astronaut theory, this field is largely reliant upon the translations of cuneiform tablets supposedly made by Zacharias Sitchin, whose series of Earth Chronicles books form the foundation upon which the modern Church of the Alien Gods has been built. In the wake of the popular reception of Sitchin's books, a plethora of popular media have followed his lead in claiming that the Sumerian literature portrays the Anunnaki as a group of alien beings who descended to the Earth in flying vehicles, in space suits, or other paraphernalia. There is no such depiction of the Anunnaki in the Sumerian texts. Most of Zacharias Sitchin's writings on the Anunnaki are concocted fables. His badly translated word, Anunnaki, in fact, absolutely does not mean those who came down, or those who came from heaven to earth, as has been reverberated in the echo chambers of the ancient alien community for the past 2 decades. The term Anunnaki, in all reality, bears the definition and transliteration, the divine water chiefs of earth, who are irrefutably proven to be nothing more than those stars and constellations in, or around that southern part of the zodiac, known to the Sumerians as the watery abyss. Enki, Sigma Sagittarii. A name of Babylonian origin, Enki is barely the second brightest star in Sagittarius, the Archer, the constellation of the zodiac that holds the winter solstice. Enki of the Euphratean tablet of the 30 stars, the star of the proclamation of the sea. The sea in question refers to the area of the sky occupied by several constellations associated with water. Delphinus, the dolphin; Aquarius, the water bear; Capricornus, the sea goat; Pisces, the fish; and Piscis Australis, the southern fish. It is the same space in the sky that Eratos designated as the water, perhaps another proof of the Euphratean origin of much of Greek astronomy. Enki was associated with the city of Eridu and the Akkadian Gushi Rabba, the yoke of the sea, the patron asterism of the city. In Sumerian mythology, it was the home of Enki, known as Ea in Akkadian and Babylonian myths. It is said mankind learned from the Shining Ones, they alone set things in order. The following inscription is on a fragment of a cylinder of clay in the British Museum. It specifically titles the Giggi and or the Anunnaki as the Shining Ones. The Giggi bowed down their faces before him, the Anunnaki. The luster of the Shining Ones, covered with brightness. The term Shining Ones, taken in its strictest sense, should be understood as a metaphor for the stars and constellations. As Anu is mentioned as the king of the Giggi and Anunnaki, do we find Beltis as the powerful goddess of the Giggi, and the god Bel is similarly the king of all the Anunnaki. Likewise, Marduk is also the great overseer and ruler of the Giggi. The rule over these spirits of the lower and upper regions seems thus not to have been the special prerogative of any one of the higher deities, but was exercised by all the higher determining deities, which, according to tablet K4629, were 7 in number. The same fragment mentions the great gods as 5 in number. The 7 Giggi seem to be confined to the upper regions, whereas the Anunnaki, as appears from the above quoted fragment, are mentioned both of heaven, 5 in number, and of the underworld. The Giggi, This, as Halavi and Guyard have recognized, is a formation of a well-known stem occurring in Babylonian, as well as in other Semitic languages, that has the meaning strong. The ideographic form of writing the name likewise designates the spears as the great chiefs. The Giggi, therefore, are the strong ones, and strength being the attribute most commonly assigned to the Semitic deities, there is a presumption, at least, in favor of interpreting Anunnaki in the same way. The Giggi are at times designated as the 7 gods, and the Anunnaki are at times regarded as a group of 5. The Anunnaki and the Giggi appear for the first time in an historical text in the inscription of the Assyrian king Rama-Narari, who includes them in his appeal to the great gods. He designates the Giggi as belonging to heaven, the Anunnaki as belonging to the earth or the underworld. The manner in which he uses the names shows conclusively that, at this early period, the two groups comprehended the entire domain over which the spirits, and for that matter also the gods, exercised their power. The Babylonians took 12 names of sun gods, and placed them together as a sacred number. This number corresponds to the 12 titans, suns, and to the 12 great gods of Homer and the Egyptians. The matter is capable of further elucidation by means of the famous 5th tablet of the creation legend, which records the operations of the divinity in the arrangement of sun, moon, stars, the year, and cosmic order generally. We read, "He made excellent the mansions, celestial houses, of the great gods, 12 in number, and the mansions of the 7 great gods. The 12 being the 12 chiefs of the stellar divinities, as Diodorus calls them, that is to say, the zodiacal star signs, the cosmic order being specially associated with the regulation of the solar path through the signs. Moreover, 12 gods especially called great, headed the Euphratean pantheon. Their Assyrian names were Anu, Bel, Ea, Sin, Marduk, Ramon, Shamash, Ninip, otherwise Adar, Nergal, Nebo, Belit, and Ishtar. Of these, Anu, Bel, Ea, Sin, Adar, Ishtar, Shamash, Marduk, Nergal, and Ramon were also patron divinities of months, the 12 principal zodiacal stars being thus immediately associated with the principal divinities. The name of On, which Enlil proclaims, is nothing but the heaven and earth, as they appear during the course of a year. The name of On is the year. The ancient Sumerian year was divided, not only into 2 seasons, summer and winter, but also into 12 months. These 12 months had their counterparts in the heavens. Their heavenly counterparts are the 12 signs of the zodiac. Year, seasons, months and signs of the zodiac have each and all their beginning and end, their boundaries are outlines, their pictures are drawings. Enlil indicates, and proclaims them. It would be tedious and unnecessary to recite here more names of gods and goddesses, though there are quite a number, and more come to light all the time as new tablets are discovered and read. Most of them are in reality only different names for the same conceptions, and the Chaldeo-Babylonian pantheon, or assembly of divine persons, is very sufficiently represented by the so-called 12 great gods, who were universally acknowledged to be at its head, and of whom we will here repeat the names: Anu, Ea and Bel, Sin, Shamash, and Ramon, Ninip, Marduk, Nergal, Nebo, Belit and Ishtar. Each had numerous temples all over the country. We saw that the new religion made room, somewhat contemptuously perhaps, for the spirits of the old creed, carelessly massing them wholesale into a sort of regiment, composed of the 300 Giggi, or spirits of heaven, and the 600 Anunnaki, or spirits of earth. Anu is the first, in the first triad of deities, and has as his numerical sign the predominating number in the sexagesimal system, that is 60. Anu is also called illustrious father of the gods. During the 3rd dynasty of Ur, the Sumerian pantheon was said to include 60 times 60 deities, which are nothing more than the 360 days of the ancient year, or the 36 constellations of the heavens. The Babylonians divided the sky into 3 parts named after them. The equator and most of the zodiac occupied the way of Anu, the northern sky was the way of Enlil, and the southern sky was the way of Ea. The builders of the temple to Bel at Babylon, and those at Jerusalem, Baalbek, and Palmyra, oriented their temples east and west, and worshipped as their supreme god Ea, the god of the true south, and Bel, the pole of the equator in Babylonian astronomy, with whom was associated Anu, the ecliptic pole. Morris Chastro specifically states, Anu is the pole star of the ecliptic. In the Chaldean account of the deluge, according to the tablets, the gods in the heavens became afraid of the waterspout and sought for a refuge. They ascended to the heaven of Anu, where they were motionless, like dogs in a heap where they crouched. This obviously means that retreating from the rest of the sky they sought refuge at a central station of the supreme god Anu, which can only be understood as the pole, where they got together, in a heap. Anu was the primeval deity who presided over heaven and its stars. According to Dr. Churchward, the pole star is the first fixed point within a circle, not the sun, and the earliest supreme being at the head of the 7 primary stars was the god of the pole star. Therefore we claim the solar glyph of Ra to have been the ideograph of the pole star at the center of a circle. Dr. Churchward further points out that the solar glyph is the ground plan of the point, or star at the top of the cone, and connects both with the all-seeing eye of the mountaintop. Early traces of the cult of the polar star are to be found in the monuments and temples of ancient Babylonia. Their ziggurats, or tower temples, as their careful orientation shows, were used as observatories for astronomical purposes, as well as for religious worship. The following titles were given to the pole star by Babylonian astronomers: Dain Same, the judge of heaven; the star of Anu, the arbiter of heaven. Anu is the concealed, the supreme, passive deity of the Babylonian cosmogony, as Parabrahman is of the Vedanta philosophy of India, and Ein Sof, of the Hebrew Kabbalah. In the formulas for addressing the pole star, the title of primitive sun occurs frequently. This title enlightens us as to the original use of the word sun, and the supreme importance accorded by the ancient astronomers to the imperial ruler of heaven. The same authority considers that the cult of Polaris, in ancient Babylonia, Assyria, became a secret one known to the initiated only, while popular worship was directed to the sun, moon, and stars, and concludes with the observation that a study of the evidence at hand on this ancient civilization shows that a primitive pole star worship existed, and still exists in the Euphratean Valley. The recovered literature covers a vast field of human interest, in science, as in astronomy and mathematics, particularly in astronomy, for the Chaldeans were famous star watchers, and had already named the stars and constellations, associating them with the deeds and mighty works of their heroes and demigods, so that the starlit sky became a picture dome, and the zodiac a frieze to the Assyrian, reminding him of his glory or fable.